to Raconteurs News.
Hello and welcome to Raconteurs 2. I'm your host, Ade Hardy, reminding you that this world belongs to everyone, not just the chosen few. Thanks to Chuck O'Chelly for the past 2 hours here on autonomousmedia.net. If you're right now listening live on autonomousmedia.net, in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, there's a little tab with chat room. Click on that and then click on the AM host chat room and you can join us live in the chat room tonight. You can also catch tonight's show on the podcast on autonomousmedia.net, and for the first time for a while, you can listen live tonight on raconteursnews.com on our Spreaker, and that will also be for all future shows. So have a look at the Raconteurs News website for that one. Okay, tonight, what have we got tonight? If gas, electricity, water, council tax, bailiffs, and what the hell all this money stuff about is right up your street, then you need to listen to my guest tonight. Please welcome to Raconteurs 2, Paul Webster, and his very poorly dog, DJ, who's laid on his lap right now.
Yeah, I heard you all right, Paul.
Yeah, I'm very good, thanks, Paul. Listen, I know this is a bit soppy and daft, but sincerely, best wishes to DJ, mate. I mean, I know he's your best mate, and he's laid on your knee, and he's not very well, so hopefully, DJ, your dog will get better very, very soon.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. I know you've been on Raconteurs News with Andy Young and Jason Holmes in the past a couple of times. What I'd love to do tonight is, just in case nobody's heard any of that, I want them to know, firstly, what Paul Webster's about, and then anything new that you can give us that we've not touched on before on Raconteurs News. So take it away, Paul. Tell us where you want to start, mate.
Well, basically, if I go back 10 years, I'm no different to anybody else who I've ever known in my life. You know, you're told what life is like as you're growing up, and that you need to get a job and you need to do all this kind of stuff and fulfill all these kind of obligations, and you know, you try and do your best to do it and to have a little bit for yourself. So that's basically where I was at, where everybody else was 10 years ago. Something happened in regard to property that was shared that suddenly sparked off a lot of legal research, and finding out the things that I was finding out, which was quite fantastical. You know, when you're talking about these magistrates' courts, county courts, you think the word court, and all of a sudden you're thinking, oh, these people are very clever people, they're much better than me, and you know, I shouldn't know any of this stuff, and I'm not going to know it, and you know, you start doubting yourself very, very early doors. But when you find something that makes so much sense to you, and then you realise that there's some kind of, you know, there's a lot of ways we can look at it, fraudulent, criminal actions that are going on in these courts. There's all different kinds of wordings that you can use for it. I mean, they like to use the word error because they don't make mistakes, they make errors. Errors can be rectified. So this is why these people don't make those kind of mistakes. And then when you've got the information that where you know what you're talking about is true, and you're stood before judges and solicitors and barristers who are panicking, who are basically panicking because they don't know what to do with you, they don't know how to speak to you, they just panic and they just phone police on you without even talking to you, and it really does put you in a place, Ed, where early doors it was so confusing because you just started to unravel something, and you're talking about the banking system, you're talking about economies, and people are wondering where this money's coming from, where these debts are coming from, and then when you actually start to realise where all this money is and where all this debt is, you start to put things together and you start to ask questions, and when you ask those questions, you're shut down.
Yeah. I mean, you sound an awful lot like me. Mine was about 6 years ago, so you're probably more qualified to sit where I am than me. But I've heard various people say roughly what you're saying, but you've got a particularly great way of putting it over. I've seen you stand and talk on a stage, and I just like the way that you do it, because you're just a guy on the street, and I've never known you try to be anything else other than that, and I think that's why you in particular come across so well.
I think, Ed, why would you... See, there's been a lot of people who've come forward in this kind of work with a lot of ego. If you're coming from ego with this stuff, you're completely barking up the wrong tree, because you're not here to have accolades for yourself and to big yourself up, to make yourself look good. I didn't want any of this. This came to me. This came and knocked on my door. So I would never stand in front of anybody and say, you're doing it wrong, you must do it this way. Because I think, hey, you're doing it that way. I never thought of doing that. That's another good way of doing it. What about if you have a look at this stuff as well as what I am? Because, you know, I mean, if we want to narrow it down just to back to the utilities for now, I didn't go looking to take on a gas company. They came after me. They messed up payment plans. I was paying £60 a month direct debit. They reduced it to £5 a month without telling me, and I thought, I must be a lot in credit here. I'll just carry on letting it go, and then I get a bill for £454. So I said, okay, I'll set up another payment plan, and I set up a card plan where I paid every 2 weeks, £30 every 2 weeks, which was me £60 a month. 3 months down the line, you've not paid this month. I rang them up, I said, I'm looking at the 2 receipts now. And that's when she started going on, well, can you put that into an envelope and send us the information so we can prove, no, I can't do this anymore. And I just said, send me a paper bill.
Yeah.
I've been studying the Bills of Exchange Act, been studying the Consumer Credit Act on negotiable instruments, and I needed to know whether this was actually a negotiable instrument of value, what they were sending me. And because it's a non-commercial agreement, what they do is on the valid bill, they actually send me what is known as a joint gyro credit check. It says bank gyro on it, which it is, a bank gyro, but people associate bank gyros with paying in slips, because a bank gyro has the same information for an account that needs an amount settling. The thing is, with a bank gyro, you don't have the value already added to it. You have to put the value to it, i.e. a cheque or cash or whatever. Whereas with the joint gyro credit cheque, it's not drawn on either party, it's not drawn on the payee, which would be me, or the utility company. It's drawn on a third party. Now, we can debate what this third party is. We can debate about it being the trust fund. We can debate who's got control of this trust fund. Is it the 151 officer at the council? Is it the treasury? We can debate all this because there's very few people who are actually working on it and trying to find that mechanism. And there's people who are getting there, who are getting results with this mechanism. But the fact is, for me, all I could see was there's no point standing there saying I have no contract, because it's immaterial. You have an agreement. What you need to know is, what agreements have you got? Have you got a commercial agreement, i.e. is it a shop or a business, or is it a private property and a non-commercial agreement? If it's not, go on, sorry.
No, go on, Paul. It's all right, you're doing fine, mate. I was just going to jump in and say something, but you've just gone straight onto it, so crack on, mate.
Well, that's what I mean. If when the joint gyro credit check comes through drawn on a third party, under the Bills of Exchange, the utility company is taking up two positions. They're taking up the draw, which is the cash draw. The monies have been paid into, so some amount of money has been paid in to their corporate bank account. They then become the drawee because they withdraw those funds. Now, they can't do anything with the funds because the account is my account. Remember, the banks, the utility companies always tell you that it's your account, not their account. So the factor, what comes about then is, if that's my account, how do I settle it? Well, you've sent me a cheque here. It's a cheque of value, it's a cheque of credit. You've issued it to the payee. So they've taken up the two positions, the drawer and the drawee. They then issue the cheque to the payee, which is in order to settle the account. Now, I'm meant to go to the post office here, sign and date the top part of the bill with my national insurance number, non-commercial agreement. They stamp the top part of the bill, they stamp the cheque, they turn the cheque off and put it in the cash drawer, and I've got the top part as my receipt. That's how the bill is meant to be settled. It even says on the cheque, no fee payable at post office counter.
So what you're saying is, then, just to summarise, if you're in a commercial property, then you should pay for your utilities.
If you're under a commercial agreement, you are liable to pay for your gas, water and electric, because even though you might be born in this country and you've got that entitlement, you are using gas, water and electric for profit because you're trying to entice people into your business to sell them a product. So therefore, it is deemed that, well, you should pay for, if you're going to use it to make profit, then you should use it and pay for that. All the commercial agreements pay for this. So the service and maintenance of the grid, because I get thrown that at me quite a bit. Well, if everybody didn't pay for the gas, who's going to pay for the maintenance man? Who's going to pay for the servicing? The commercial agreements pay for all that, not the private agreements.
Right, so what we're saying is the commercial need to pay for it.
Yeah.
The domestic don't.
Yeah.
And the way that a domestic bill and a commercial bill, not that anybody particularly gets one anymore because they entice everybody to pay by direct debit.
Well, they'll knock your fiver off if you go direct debit.
Yo, as much as that, yeah. Off a bill that you've no need to pay, that's good of a minute. But what you're saying is at the bottom of a commercial bill, there's no gyro slip, but on the bottom of a domestic bill there is, and that is your remedy to pay with. Yeah,
on the bottom of the invoice you may get a pay-in slip, but the difference between a joint gyro credit cheque drawn on a third party and a bank gyro you will only have the utility company's bank account on it, whereas with the joint gyro you will have a corporate bank and a trans cash logo, meaning there's been a transfer of cash.
Right, so that's actually got value, and really all you need to do is go into the post office, sign it, date it, stick your national insurance number on it, job done.
Yeah, that's that's the mechanism that is the simplest. But the post office aren't legally trained. They don't understand what Bills of Exchange Act is. I mean, God bless him, I had a gas agent state under oath in the stand that they claim to have settled it through the Bills of Exchange Act, which doesn't exist. Now, I'm really sorry, but if the Bills of Exchange Act doesn't exist, what commerce have we been participating in for the last hundreds and hundreds of years? Because if there is no Bills of Exchange, then because there is no money, what's going on?
Yeah.
In other words, if we just take away that factor that there is no money and people can have all this anyway because it's all based on a promise, then why can't everybody just have everything anyway and have a bit of a utopian type society?
Yeah, absolutely agree. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, it's not. People think that's beyond comprehension, but it isn't for me.
I think it's because if you, I mean, you know, we've all got family, and especially family, and friends who think we're nutters. Because when you say to them, oh, you know, got this thing with the gas and the electric, and you know, challenging me poll tax because I don't need to pay that, and I'm just trying to find remedy. And they go, what do you mean you don't have to pay it? How do you get away with that?
How do you get away with it? Yeah.
You know, rather than, oh right, so you don't need to pay it. It's because everybody's indoctrinated, aren't they?
Yeah, that's it. It's when I started to scratch the surface of what this Bills of Exchange was, I didn't realise how it was everything. Absolutely everything is Bills of Exchange. From the fact that if I walk into the pub and ask for a pint of lager and I get the receipt and sign the receipt before I've exchanged any of my money, my signature on that receipt is redeemable at the taxman. That's paid for. I paid for my pint by my receipt. Now,
Wow.
that's a creation of new money. Now,
I didn't know that.
How the hell do I get my head around that when I'm still trying to work out why somebody is saying, listen, you owe us 400 quid, here's a cheque for 400 quid. Well, if I owe you 400 quid, why are you giving me a cheque for 400 quid? Because I said to you last night, Ed, if I owe you 100 quid, you're not going to give me a cheque for £100 and then say you owe me 100 quid. Yeah,
No, that's right. It just doesn't make any sense, does it?
No, but that's what the utility companies are doing. When you ask for the paper bill, they're actually sending you the mechanism to settle the account. Now, it should be so straightforward as you go to the post office, boom, boom, that's it, done. But the post office doesn't recognise it. They kept my cheque when I transferred the cheque by my endorsement to them as my agent, because they always like to tell you that you're their customer. Well, that's not, they flip it. You're not their customer, they are your agent. They act on your behalf. They work for you and nobody else. All they do is they collect revenue from the people who are liable to pay for the gas, water and electric. So all these utility companies get an amount of money and they've got to recoup a certain amount of that back. That's all from commercial agreements. So then they'll come to the likes of myself and you, where they'll go, Mr. Ade Hardy, there's your corporation. So now we're talking about another business. So, Mr. Hardy, you owe us some money. Well, hang on a minute, this is a non-commercial agreement. So therefore, you are now arguing the jurisdictional aspect based on, well, if they're claiming that you caused them loss, then let's go to the equity side, let's go to a county court of equity and show me the proof of your claim where I caused you this loss and I'll pay you whatever I owe you lawfully. But they don't do that. They go straight for a warrant of forced entry. Yeah. And the warrant of forced entry is so split apart in jurisdictions. A forced entry warrant pertains to pipes, fittings and escape of gas. That's it. So unless there's a problem with the pipes, fittings or there's an escape of gas, there is no warrant that can be awarded to force entry. Particularly one for a pay-as-you-go meter, which is a statutory warrant, which they already have. They already have a warrant to fit a pay-as-you-go meter because they're legally qualified to do that. What they need on top of that is they need your express request to fit a pay-as-you-go meter. And they have to have a signed agreement under the prepayment regulations.
Just before we get to that in more detail, you know when you were talking about a bill, if it's got a check on the bottom of it, I remember my dad used to wait for the red bill to come. Yeah. We didn't have direct debit and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then out of that Thursday's wages, he used to give my mum enough money to go down to the gas board with the bill, and he'd give a wedge of notes and coins, and that gyro slip that you were talking about, and hand it over at the gas board counter, and it's all stamped and done, and both the gyro slip and the money go in the drawer.
Yeah.
So that technically surely means then they're getting paid twice.
Yeah.
Double dipping.
Yeah.
Now, because everybody's on direct debit nowadays, they're actually double dipping without you even knowing it.
Yep.
Even though in the old days you used to have, the pieces of paper in your hand, and it should have been obvious. It wasn't. I mean, my dad weren't daft, and he never worked it out clearly because he never told me.
Well, my mum was the same, mate. My mum was very intelligent. She read things like the Independent, the Daily Mail, papers like, they're not rags. To my mum, 30 years ago, they were good, honourable papers. She was very well informed. And it's completely not the case. My mum would have behaved a lot like me mate's mum. She saw a video that he did where he said he hadn't paid for his gas and he was challenging him and blah blah blah. And she rang him up and she just said that she was disgusted with him. And he went, what? She said, I've never been so ashamed. And he said, why? He says, because you're not paying for your bills. but she doesn't understand why he's not paying.
Yeah.
And people try and come from an angle what they've already been taught. They're trying to come from an angle of, I had one fella talk about Keynesian economics to me. What are you doing talking about Keynesian economics? This fits a financial structure as what is designed to steal from us. So why would you then want to keep debating an economic system that is designed just to steal from us? You've got to start opening your mind a bit further and look at the fact of, in a bankrupt economy, who is the creditor? Who brings the credit? I mean, basically, if you want to talk about mortgages, if I'm going for a mortgage for £100,000, I'm actually bringing the cash value, and the banker actually saying, "Oh, thank you for that cash value. Oh, you're giving us this. You're gifting us £100,000. Thank you for that. Oh, what was that? Oh, you'd like to borrow it back? Oh, yes. Well, we can certainly lend you your own money back, but you need to pay so much a month and so much interest." They don't tell you that the interest that you pay is for an insurance policy that has to be taken out by under the European Parliamentary Directive. So there's an insurance policy in case you default on your mortgage. So not only have they not lent you anything, but they've also got an insurance policy. So the £100,000, they then securitise that promissory note and sell it, reducing your liability to yourself by possibly 90%. Let's say we've sold it for 90 grand. So now you only owe yourself £10,000, but they don't tell you that. They stick the 90 grand in their arse pocket. If you default, they claim the insurance, 100 grand straight off the bat after 3 defaults. So that's 190 grand now that they've made from you without a penny being lent to you. Then after default comes foreclosure. They then steal your property and sell it for another 100 grand. That's 290 grand that they've made from you without lending you one penny, and you still owe them on paper £100,000 plus interest.
Yep.
So when you start looking at it like that, if you can't start thinking, oh, maybe I should have read my terms and conditions now, maybe I should teach this to my kids type thing.
Having spent 20 years as a financial advisor, you can imagine my disgust with myself when I discovered all this a few years ago.
Yeah.
And looking at myself in the mirror and thinking, how could you have been so stupid? And then also realising that, my mum and dad didn't lie to me on purpose. They were just unaware. Now, I don't know if you've listened to the first show I did on Raconteurs Too. The whole thing was opposites distract, and we're actually told the opposite, just like you've mentioned with the mortgage, where, we're led to believe that they're lending us money. In other words, they're physically shifting 100 grand in a vault from a big box into your little box in the corner, which clearly isn't happening. We know that now.
Yeah.
What's actually happening is they're facilitating credit. That's it. That's all they're doing. It's a paper exercise to con us into believing that, black is white. It's an opposite there to distract you. Now, what I always try to get from these conversations is, what one-liner can we punch to somebody who's unaware of this that will make them stick their head down the rabbit hole? What do you say to your family and friends? What's that one-line seed that you try and drop? What is it that you say to your friends, Paul?
Well, a lot of it's used with banter with me, because people know that I haven't paid for my gas. People know that I've challenged the banks. People know that I've challenged council tax. And though people 4, 5, 6 years ago were the same people then who used to think I was a nutter, and they'd turn and walk the other way. Those same people now sit down next to me, Ed, and say, "So, Webby, what do you know?
Yeah.
Tell me about what you know."
Yeah.
I basically tell people the truth as I know it, because I don't believe that. I don't sit here for 1 second and think I know everything now, I can do everything. That's not true. But I have an understanding of this world that 85% of people who I know don't.
Yeah.
And that's not being derogatory towards them. That's just stating a fact that I've done the research and realised that there's more to this banking scenario and that, and I see people who are struggling to pay. Oh, I can't. Are you coming out for a pint? No, I can't come out for a pint this week because I've got to pay this bill and pay that bill. And then you've got people who are getting in trouble, and they're not getting in trouble through any fault of their own. And you think, well, I want to help these people, but then you've got on the flip side of it, people who want to get in touch with you and say, hey, I've just got this credit card, I'm going to blow it, I'm going to go and blow it to the max. How do I get out of it? Well,
yeah, I've had that.
That's fraud. That's fraud.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're going to participate in that, that's fraud. But what I want to highlight is that there are people like myself, people from my generations, even before, have took mortgages out, took loans out, took credit cards out, and because of how the economy's gone, or maybe losing the job and that, they found themselves in a lot of trouble. And there's no need for them to be in that trouble, because it's not conducive to a good economy to have debt. Debt must be forgiven, and the fact is that they're just siphoning everything off from us now. The checks that we were talking about, the trust, that they're being siphoned off into either tax exempt charities or other tax exempt trusts. But wherever it is, our credit is being siphoned off, and it's leaving us with nothing. And when I stand up and say, well, your gas is free, that's all I have to say to create a debating point, Ed.
Yeah.
You know, people will argue with me. I say, it's not this dickhead who's still paying for the gas, though, is it? You're still paying for your gas. So that creates a talking point. It doesn't mean to say that I've just stopped paying all my bills, because I'm not physically capable to take all that on my own. To get time off work, to go to court, to keep doing court paperwork. I mean, if you'd have seen my filing system at one time, I had paperwork on the back of the couch, I had paperwork on cushions, paperwork on top of the telly, on top of the printer, on top of the other couch, on top of everywhere, just so I could put all my bundles together. So I'm more than happy to come in and do my bit. If I've done anything, I've proved, at least to myself and to people who've bothered to listen to what I've done and then go and research what I've done. I've got nothing to prove to anybody about it, because I know that there is no money there. I know who's brought the cash value with mortgages. I know that the bank hasn't done anything yet, they've stolen it. I know that the executive and the judiciary are working together. I can show all this. If that's not paying your dues, mate, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, don't bring the Jews into it again. I'm going to get labelled anti-Semitic now.
Yeah, we'll spell that with a D, shall we? I found that I've dropped a few one-liners to people, and they sort of look at you like you're a nutter.
Yeah.
But then when they get a problem, they're straight on the phone to you.
Yeah.
And what I found myself saying to them is, look, I'll tell you where to go. I'm not doing this for you. I'm not going to spoon feed you, because otherwise you end up being just a busy idiot that ain't even got time to do his own stuff.
Yeah.
And a few times my daughter's a classic example. Oh, Dad, I've got this another speeding thing, or I've been ignoring these letters, and I've sort of started saying, look, you've got to deal with these when they crop up. You cannot wait till it gets to the bit where they're about to hang you before you try and deal with it. You've got to deal with it right at the very beginning.
You've got, especially these days, even down to parking tickets, because of legislation now, they believe that they've got a test case for like Parking I versus Beavis. Now, the test case, it's all very well having a test case, but it's not law.
No.
It's not enforceable. But when you're trying to, all they needed was some kind of a shoe-in. And going to the Supreme Court, they thought, we're never going to get an opportunity like this again. Let's put 4 judges up there. 3 of them will shove it up his arse, and the 4th judge will find somewhere in between. Now, we've been given the remedy to it, fortunately, but if he hadn't gone through the court system, putting a parking ice ticket in the bin was the best remedy. Just bin. They had nothing until it was taken further. Now, they're using stuff like they're taking control of goods regulations, and they're trying to impose it onto that test case. So we had just before Christmas, we had somebody who had the side window of the car smashed by Marston's, dragged out the car, and they took the car away with six coppers watching. So what was the crack? How did they manage to commit criminal damage and take this car? Under the taking control of goods regulations, that car belonged to Marston's because it covered their costs. That's what they're trying to apply that test case to now.
Wow. I mean, we see this stuff all the time. I mean, it's almost like, if it doesn't matter what it is, if you don't challenge it, then they'll just assume whatever they want. And if you don't challenge it, things like you were talking about a warrant of forced entry. If you don't say, hang on a minute, you can't use that to get into my house to fit a prepayment meter, they will.
Just straight in, yeah.
Yeah. If you don't challenge a bailiff and the police, they'll come straight in. I had my son on the phone about 5 weeks ago on a Saturday morning, got the bailiffs at the door. It wasn't even for him, it was for the chap that he rents the house off. And I ended up threatening to arrest a bailiff if he was still on that property when I got there. And when the police turned up, my son put them on the phone, and I threatened to arrest the two police as well. And this lady says, the woman copper says, you can't do that. And I went, I beg to differ, just because you're wearing fancy dress. And as soon as I said that, she put the phone back through the letterbox, and all three of them left the property. So if you don't challenge it, and unless somebody, I found twice now, recently in the past month, people who have looked at me in the past and said, they're sort of looking at you thinking, he's a nutter. Then something happens to them, like all of a sudden their husband's on short time at work and they can't afford to pay this and they can't afford to pay that. They'll come to you and go, what did you mean? What did you mean?
Yeah.
And I find it quite refreshing because, bit by bit, they'll tell somebody, who'll tell somebody, who'll tell somebody.
That's how it starts. That's how it starts, man. I mean, I used to get so angry about 5 years back. I used to get so angry because I'd be telling people this stuff, and they'd just go, "Oh, that's over my head." Well, it shouldn't be. You shouldn't allow it to be over your head. This
exactly
is
right.
Your kids, your grandkids. Are you just going to switch off and leave it to the kids to deal with? I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that to my daughter. And
thankfully, I mean, my son is 30, my daughter's 27, and both of them are really savvy. I mean, probably a couple of years ago, if the bailiffs had come knocking on my son's door, he'd have been panicking. When he rang me that Saturday morning, he was laughing. Because he says, this is going to be really funny. And his wife's there going, no. And he says, no, trust me, between me and my dad, we'll do this. And, I was on the phone, driving there in the car, on hands-free, if anybody's listening, talking to the bailiff on the phone. They won't even open the door, they just put the phone through the letterbox. And I said to the woman copper, tell the bailiff I'll be a couple of minutes late, because he'd rung him because he felt threatened.
I know, we've had the same.
So I just said, well, tell him I'll be 2 minutes late because I'm going to stop off at the co-op and buy him a bag of nappies. And the woman copper went, what do you mean? I said, well, he's obviously just a big baby, isn't he? There's me on my own and there's you three dressed in black. Well, please don't think I'm afraid of you because I'm not. And I didn't even have to before I got there, they'd gone. Because if you challenge it and show them that you know what you're talking about, they will go away.
You would overbear this, but when you get to the gas warrants, we're now finding that they're moving the goalposts with the gas warrants. We had a copper physically push behind a gas warrants agent, push him onto the property. So from public property on the footpath, he pushed and used his weight to gain entry to the private property. And when he was pulled afterwards, I went, well, if we'd have put our hands on him, who would you have arrested? He said, well, you lot. I said, well, why? I said, well, you're in breach of the peace, it's public property. No, you pushed them onto private property. So these coppers haven't got a clue what they're engaging in. We tried to show him Section 26 of the Criminal Courts and Justice Act 2015, wasn't interested until afterwards he calmed down. I spoke to him about it, and I said, you know that you lot are in so much danger of facing custodial sentences for what you're doing.
Yeah.
I said, what do you mean? I said, you're facing up to 7 years custodial for what you've just done. You have certain powers as a constable when you act as a constable. You weren't acting as a constable then. You was acting as a constable until you forced entry. Once you forced entry, you've just aided and abetted a criminal act.
Yeah.
There's no difference there.
You and I both know somebody who's actually going through this at the moment. We can't speak about it because no doubt it will end up in court. And there are 2 coppers who put a door in. One who was first through the door and the one with a big red key. And if I know this person who's putting this case forward, he'll go all the way with it. And what we need is just a small handful of police constables, police officers, whatever, to suffer this, and hopefully the rest of the police will start to get the message. You know, just because you're in fancy dress doesn't mean you've got all this power that you think you've got.
That's what the difference is with these. You get some who are willing to listen because they really do know that they don't know everything, and then you've got the other ones, which is like what we had a couple of weeks back, where he gets out of the car, says to the warrants officer, let's do this.
Yeah.
So it's obvious what he's doing. He wants to get them on the property, and then he wants to try and placate us afterwards, which is fine. You know, there's no point rolling around with a copper after they broke into the property anyway. You might as well just try and talk some sense into him. Yeah. And he said, well, if what you're saying is true about that your gas is free and all this, that and the other, you should have a pretty big claim going in here. I said, yeah, we should have. And he looked at me, he says, he was waiting for a punchline. I said, no, I said, there will be. I said, the only reason that this isn't out everywhere is because nobody's taking it forward as a claim.
Well, nobody's going to put it on the Channel 4 news, that's for sure.
No. Well, we've already discussed that. I've had people get in touch with me saying that they are from mainstream media and they're interested in getting this information out. They're never going to put this information out there.
No.
You know, not when, especially like you just said, the likes of Channel 4, who's, you know, if you're unfortunate enough to still watch television, when all these programs break up, what is it? British Gas, Eon, EDF, Scottish Power, all these big six are saying, come and buy gas off us.
Yeah, or
Channel
fill in all your details on this website for your credit check, so that we can then go sell it to all these companies that you might be hiding from, because there's a genuine discrepancy on that account.
Exactly.
You know, and people are paying 15, 20 and 25 quid a month for the privilege of being grassed up.
Yep.
So
one of the best parts of it is, the people, if you're handling data like that, you've got to be a data officer. Now, are these people who are acting in private capacities, are they actually qualified data protection officers? I very much doubt it. So they're selling data to people who aren't even qualified to handle the data. Yeah. So it's wherever you want to look at on these levels, Ade, the fault, we've started to unstitch them from the very beginning. When I first started out off on this, I walked into a county court and I didn't want to sell my house. Now, Ade, if me and you own a house between us and you sell your half to Andy, I haven't got a leg to stand on. You can sell you can sell your property to whoever you want. Yes. But you can't make me sell my half to Andy. Right? I'd agree with that. That is the law. So when I went to court this day, the court clerk was stood outside, and I said, could you ask the judge what authority he's standing under today, what jurisdiction, to claim authority over me and my property? 4 minutes later, armed response police arrived at that court, and they ran in and out of every courtroom, and they were looking for a breach of the peace. When they'd stopped running in and out of every courtroom and they settled on the court clerk, and the court clerk was explaining something to them, I was then summoned into the room. And I was stood in front of a judge with 2 armed police in front of me, 2 armed police behind me, and 1 armed police at either side of me. And all I was saying was, I do not wish to sell my house. And
yet you've got 4 armed response coppers.
Yep. And the reason I'm thinking that the reason I've got these 6 coppers is because one of the lads who was with me that day was also one of the lads who were present at Birkenhead when Roger Hayes tried to make a citizen's arrest. A council tax judge. Now that set a precedent that the police were automatically called. So I'm thinking that armed response were just the nearest. I don't think they deemed me that dangerous that I needed armed response police, but to think that over the next 5 hearings I had armed response police, video evidence gatherers, and all in all over 30 coppers present at the next 5 hearings, and all it was I don't want to sell my house. And it was because I questioned the jurisdiction. What authority? Where do you claim authority?
Well, you don't get flack unless you're over the target, that is for sure.
Exactly that, mate. Exactly that.
Just before we go into more depth on that, Paul, we've got a couple of things come up that are very interesting in the chat room, and it's clearly your input that's causing these comments to be made, so thanks for that. But we've got one here from Mithrin. In the 80s, Lloyds were chasing his friend for £2,000 on an access card. Now, for anybody who's younger than about 30, they won't know what an access card is. It was one of the first credit cards, and it was coming by that was HSBC's equivalent to the Barclay card, wasn't it?
There's your flexible friend.
That's right, but stiffened up. Yeah. He said apparently this chap said to the manager, "Look, I'm unemployed. What do you expect if you give me a credit card?" The manager got Mithrin's friend to sign a backdated insurance policy and claimed on that.
Now, see, why, considering you've got insurance policies taken out anyway for your credit cards, for your overdrafts, for your mortgages, for your loans, why is anybody losing property?
Yep.
Because the whole point, if I take out a mortgage and I default and I have to claim on the insurance, well, fucking hell, the next time I take out a mortgage, my insurance is going to be treble. Yeah. I'm going to be paying a lot more. But that's what it's for.
Yeah, of course it is.
So why are people being purposely bummed and raped over this? Because there's no other way of looking at it. This is purposely, it's not being done by accident, it's being done by design.
Paul, I've actually had experience of this today. Today I have just bought a new motorbike, which I haven't got delivery of yet. It's not brand new. I've traded one in. Well, in fact, effectively I've sold 2 bikes and I'm buying one. Yeah. So it's not because I've got a load of money, because I haven't. The only things that I own is the motorbikes, and I've just traded them. Now, at no point am I taking any credit for this. No money's coming from a credit card, no money's coming from anything other than from me. And I have just had to sit on the phone for half an hour this afternoon with the salesman who said, unless we go through this, the Financial Conduct Authority will not allow me to sell you this bike. And then you've got to sign this document and email it back to me. And I went, okay, Tom, go on then, mate. And it was all about gap insurance. Now, for those that don't know, gap insurance is you buy a car, a bike or whatever for 15 grand. Plus all the interest of all the finance, blah, blah, blah. There's a good chance that if that car's lost, stolen, damaged, whatever in the first couple of years, that the insurance company are going to pay out the book value, and there'll be a gap between what you owe and what you're going to get off the insurance company. And he had to go through all of this stuff about gap insurance, which was completely irrelevant, because I'm just buying the fucking thing. Now, he still had to go through all of that crap. And when he'd gone through it all, I did it all, and then I went, Tom, I need to explain this to you. And I put it to him, and he went, God, I never knew that. And then I explained to him about money, and then I explained to him about the fact that this bike's registered in your name, and he'd gone through all that lot. And I went, yeah, but you don't own it. He said, what do you mean? So then I went through, you know, if you register anything, you give up legal title to it. And he said, I'm going to have a look at this when I get home tonight, mate. Thanks for that. And he was really quite interested. But I've just had to go through all this insurance crap when there isn't even a need for me to have it, even if the system was what it actually seems. Unbelievable. Anyway, enough about me. Let's go back to comments in the chat room. Mithrin, the second one from Mithrin tonight. Thanks, Mithrin. In the job, it's known as the Ways and Means Act. Essentially, blagging your way through. I think that's when you were talking about the court system and you know, people not knowing what they're actually doing in there.
Well, it's a good point, because we've gotten to the point now, Ed, where the barristers and the solicitors are done. They can't bring any arguments that will beat what we've got. So what's happening more and more now is that the judges are having to step forward, and the judges are, like for one case against British Gas, the evidence that was brought forward over the account attempted to be settled was the Bills of Exchange Act, Consumer Credit Act Section 123, the negotiable instrument itself, what was used, and British Gas's own memorandums, 4.22, that talks about we accept payments in the form of cash, cheques, promissory notes, negotiable instruments. So they're already stated in their own memorandums, this is what we accept. Mm. So when you go to the Section 123 of the Consumer Credit Act, it tells you under the circumstances of what we don't accept a negotiable instrument under, until you get to number 5. And number 5 states none of this applies to a non-commercial agreement. So it all applies to the domestic. So right, there I go, I've got the cheque.
There's the remedy.
There's the acts, there's the remedy. There you go, district judge. As a district judge, you must interpret these acts factually. But that's where they're being clever. Then they go, right, flip the jurisdiction here. I'm not going to tell you this, but I'm now no longer acting as a judge. I'm acting as a justice of the peace. And as acting as a magistrate, I can make a shit decision now, and you can't prosecute me because magistrates can't be prosecuted. So the shit decision is, you've got a commercial agreement with British Gas, you've used the gas, you should pay it. I don't need to talk to you anymore, please leave the court. That's what we got.
So basically they flip the jurisdiction, he takes his judge's hat off, puts his layman's hat on, because that's what a magistrate is, talks a load of shit for 10 minutes, fucks you over, and then walks out with a clean bill of health.
Yeah, and then bans me from any more of his courts because I told him he had no integrity.
Well, once you know the truth, you can't unknow it, can you?
But he did tell me, he said, well, you've no respect. I went, you want to talk about respect after what you've just done to that man? I said, you want to talk about respect? It's the state of these people in courts now. You've got judges acting like they're reduced to the actions of a 5-year-old child, shuffling paperwork and saying, I'm not going to speak to you anymore.
I think the bottom line is what they're doing is basically saying to us, look, whatever you do, we're going to screw you over anyway.
Yeah, that's exactly where they're at. They were never going to just give it up, but the fact is now, the harder we push, the quicker they're trying to screw a little bit more money. If they can get another 25 pence out of it, they'll get another 25 pence out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this, Paul, that it's clear that as yours and the other people doing the same sort of work that you are, who might be using, different ways and means and different information, as you're pushing forward with this, the judges and the magistrates are having to work harder and harder and harder.
Definitely.
And I don't think now, because of the good work that you do, that we're that far away from proper remedy for this.
We're not. It's just we've got to become claimant.
Yes.
To become claimant. We've had a good win just this week. We had a decent win a few weeks back where a district judge agreed with a lad who said that, the warrant is in the wrong jurisdiction. If there's no problem with the health and safety of the supply, that I can't award a warrant of entry. Now, that's all we want. That's all we want is a judge to just do his job. We don't want any special privileges, but what we want is impartiality, and that's not what we're getting.
Yes.
I put, again, this is where the judges are flipping jurisdiction. I put case law in front of a judge in my case. I don't know if you've, Andy will know, Anthony Carlin.
Oh, yeah.
But Carlin Hughes versus Santander, there's a lot more to the case law, but basically it states, you are a very big bank, but you've still got to prove that you've lent this man some money. I'm not going to take your word for it, so you need to prove your claim. Well, the banks can't prove their claim because they're not lending anything. It's illegal for them to lend any money. They're bankrupt. It's absolutely ridiculous. So
it's a farce.
It is, and it would be very, very, very funny and amusing if people weren't killing themselves, dying. People are just dying of heartbreak over having the property rinsed from them through no fault of their own. And people have got to wake up to that fact and say, enough's enough, and just do something, even if it is going talking about it. If you can't physically do something because of your family or anything like that, I never advocate anybody getting involved in this stuff unless the family is 100% behind, because I've seen this destroy families. Paul,
I'm sat here on my own, no longer engaged to be married because of all this.
Well, I'm very fortunate. My circumstances fit in perfectly with mine now. I don't live with anybody. I don't want to live with anybody. I'm very happy with my life as it's turned out. I just couldn't be bothered with that. How do you put it? Not answering to somebody. Yeah. That's not the right term. But I come home from work, and if there's stuff that I need to research, I can get onto it straight away with no hassles. And I couldn't imagine anybody wanting to live through a letter dropping on the doormat and panicking. I couldn't imagine anybody wanting to live through that. So, but I'd do it all again to get rid of my ex out my life, mate. I'd go through it all again to learn what I learned.
Paul, I want to get back to more detail about how you wouldn't sell your half and about how you got to become claimant and more about the case law. Yeah. And the people I always feel for are the ones that you've already mentioned, those who are out there who are actually in distress, who lose sleep and their life over this. This isn't just money on a piece of paper that we both know doesn't exist. This is people's lives. This is real. This is killing people, yeah. Now, before we get to all that, I just want to go back to the comments in the chat room, because there's a couple of really good ones here. Patrick left one a few minutes ago. Return to sender. I do not recognise you. I do not understand your intent. I have no... What's that? I do not have an international treaty with you. No assured value. No liability. That's the stuff to write on an envelope if somebody writes to you about anything. Yep. There's another one for that as well. What was the other one? Come on, Adrian. I can't even think what the other one was. Oh, yeah, recorded for fraud. That's a good one. Yeah. I do not recognise you. Recorded for fraud. Return to sender. In other words, piss off, I'm not paying you. Yeah. So another flick down the chat room, see what we've got here.
The only problem I've got with sending it back and ignoring it is that these bastards now are going through Northampton bullshit warehouse centre a lot. Yeah. And that's just getting a summary judgment. No solicitors, no judges are there. It's just a summary judgment. It doesn't even really exist in their world, never mind ours. It doesn't exist in their world. But it's enough for these companies to be able to act upon it. So, yes, you can ignore it and send it back, have no contract, blah, blah, blah. I know people who've done that. But these people are getting to a point now where they're not allowing you to just use that. You've got to box a bit more canny
Yeah.
these days, because the likes of Beavis versus Parking Eye, that kind of stuff, where they're using like the Parking Eye mechanisms based on a common law aspect to the agreement. There's a sign on the wall that clearly states if you go over 2 hours you pay 85 quid. So 3 judges said, it's clearly stated if you do that you must pay the £85. Now that's a deemed contract. It's not contract law, so is that enforceable? How is this enforceable? It isn't. It isn't enforceable.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's what we've been used to, and now we're actually asking questions. It's putting people into positions where they don't know how to answer it. They don't know what to do. They don't know whether to ignore it, or they don't know whether to send it back.
What you're saying is, because we're all up in our game, they're having to up theirs.
Yeah, but the fact is they can't up the game, Ade. Because we've upped our game that much, when they up their game, they look absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
They look like Keystone Cops at the minute.
Yeah.
They're running round and they're doing nothing with what they're running around with. We've got stuff going in about council tax. The skeleton's been redone 3 times now because we want to make sure that the argument is tight, but we want to give the judge just that little bit of room to step out. You know, just give him that little bit of room to step out of it, because you don't want to nail a judge in. You want to give him the chance to do the right thing if he's going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we take it from there, mate. It's each day as it comes with this stuff, because something that we wrote yesterday, we might change tomorrow. Yeah. Just because of a chat that we've had tonight or tomorrow morning.
Yeah, every day's a school day. Every day's a school day.
It certainly is, pal.
Paul, we're almost at the end of the first hour, so what I want to do is come on to the juicy stuff straight after the break. But before we get to the break, I just want to cover a few things that are in the chat room. And again, it's down to you, mate, because it's all the information that you're bringing forward that's prompting these comments. Who's this one from? Can't see who this one from. Spotter? The system has been selling private data for ages. The DWP is a data controller and a financial data controller, and they have to be registered as such with the ICO, Information Commission's Office. And they sell data to about 45 countries, including South America and God knows where else. That's quite interesting.
Well, that's what I was saying about the data protection. They're selling it to people who aren't qualified to handle that data. So imagine the fraud that's being committed there, the crime.
Yeah. Okay, let's just whiz through these as quick as we can. I just want to. There is no remedy to be had. When it comes to it, they will take your money at gunpoint. That's Mithrin. Yeah, you're quite right, mate. Let's have a look at this one. Who's this one from? Spot 4, is it? Or Spotter? Banks are debtors, period. Without depositors gifting their cash into the machine, they wouldn't exist. Absolutely nailed and spot on. Could not agree with you more, mate. Who's this one? Kevin and Mark. The utility companies are now checking the land registry. The tactics have changed. That's quite interesting.
That's Kevin. That's Victor Meldrew, that.
Here we go, the next one. They use PO boxes for the scam now. The Royal Mail facilitate government departments to operate dead boxes designed to waste your time. That's quite interesting. That one. Paul, I've got a question here, and I want to give you 4 minutes and 2 seconds to think about this, which is the length of the tune that we're going to play in just a moment, or should I say, Andy's going to...
Hi, this is Lisa Tanner, and you're listening to Raconteurs News.
Go. Hello, welcome back to Raconteurs 2. I'm your host, Ade Hardy, reminding you that this world belongs to everyone, not just the chosen few. My very special guest tonight is Paul Webster and his very poorly boxer dog who's sat on his knee. And if you can hear poor old DJ panting, just forgive us for that, because DJ's a little poorly boy at the minute, and Paul's doing a great job of nursing him back to good health. Are you back with us, Paul?
Yeah, I'm here, Paul.
Good. Just before the break, we had a question about your jurisdiction and what happened. But anyway, just before we get to that, I just want to read this one last comment out from the chat room. Oh, as it jumps back up the screen again. Just bear with me a second while I try and find it again. Deemed contract. If there really was a contract, wouldn't need to be deeming.
Exactly. That's it's a lot. There's a lot of different things. It's like the word deposit. It doesn't really have much of a meaning in legal terms. Deposit, especially when it comes to mortgages, because there is no deposit.
Yes.
The fact that the money is put into your bank account is actually only to pertain to the debt that the bank has created. But yes, they put the debt into your account, so it's your account, not theirs. Your account. So it's your debt, and you've agreed to pay that debt. This was what happened. What I believe happened with me when they let me go on about equity, and I was rattling on about equity, and they allowed me to talk about equity because they were standing under the common law aspect of the mortgage agreement. The common law aspect is I had agreed to pay so much per month with interest. If I couldn't pay that much a month, I would gift them my property, because there is no penalty in common law. There's only forfeiture. So I forfeited my house if I couldn't pay for what I had agreed to pay. And that was what they stood under. Oh no, he said he'd pay, and he said he hasn't now, so we'll stand under this. And as long as you don't rebut that, that's where they stand. And they're not clever. They're not clever, these people, Abe. They've had a massive advantage on us because we haven't got a clue what the fuck they were talking about. Yeah. And then they've also had the additional extra information that they use plain English, but it means something different in their world, their language. Yep. I tell this to people a lot because the basics of it is, I said to people, right, you've heard the term when a cop has said, are you the driver of this motor vehicle? And they always say, yeah. So, right, well, from the age of 5, you're told that a steering wheel in front of you means that you're driving, therefore you are the driver. You are inevitably driving a car, which is a motor vehicle. So English kicks in and you say, driver, driving, steering wheel. Yeah, I'm the driver of this motor vehicle. But a driver is not a man or a woman. It's a person. And it's a person, it's a company who uses a motor vehicle on public roads for monetary gain. Coach driver, bus driver, taxi driver, delivery driver.
Well, I was told that it actually comes back from farming, when a farmer used to drive his sheep through a village to the next field, and he was actually doing that because he's taking him to the slaughterhouse to earn money.
Commerce, exactly. And that's the extension of it now. So a driver is now applied to anybody using a motor vehicle, but it also applies to only those who are using it to engage in commerce. Yeah. So you do not drive to Asda. You travel to Asda. Yeah. You're not driving. But this is basic English that we're taught, and we strap ourselves up into all this English language, and we just give away our money to pay these fines.
Yeah. Paul, I want to go to the jurisdiction thing in a minute, but we've got a couple more questions that have just popped up in the chat room. This one's for you, mate. Question: does Paul ever ask what man or woman is making the claim? As we all know, the banks and councils and so on are all dead entities, and only a flesh and blood man or woman can make a claim. That comes from Patrick.
No, because you can actually have a look. They've actually got legislation out where they deal with people who are talking like that. Straight away, that is being branded as free man of the land. And you're never going to get any further than free man of the land. And they've got a certain protocol that they work through now to deal with anybody who is classed as free man of the land. So no, I've very many years ago, I did stand in the court 10 years ago, 7 years ago, and state that I'm a man, I do not consent for you to adjudicate on this, blah blah blah. And they classed me as a free man, and they called me a free man. What that means, they'll still never be able to justify it, because at the end of the day, the easiest remedy for any of this stuff is, well, I'm a man. Have I engaged in commerce with you? You know, because as a man, I must engage in commerce. You can't tell me I've engaged in commerce with you and then apply the legal name to me and force me to accept that commerce. I have to participate in it. So it's how you explain that. Explaining it to a pissant county court, trying to say anything about you being a man, in my experience, is a waste of time.
They'll just label you as a free man on the land and then just deal with you, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, they would just free man of the land, and they'd treat you as a free man of the land. So legally, they can just fuck you off. They can just ignore you, because legally you are now classed as a free man, and that has no standing, and blah 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 blah. They can do whatever they like. Now, what I did was, why not engage with my straw name, with my legal name? Why not engage with it? Why be afraid of it? Somebody sent me a cheque. Somebody sent Mr. Paul Webster a cheque. So my straw man has just been given remedy to settle his gas account. So why would I not pick up the monopoly piece of Mr. Paul Webster and go, I'm Mr. Paul Webster, I'll transfer that cheque. Why would I not do that? It's in my interest to do so.
So what you're saying is, rather than try and divert round it and stand there as a man, you're standing there as a person.
Yeah.
And you're effectively saying to them, right, okay, yeah, I don't mind being a person, I'll deal with this. But this, in your own rules, is the remedy, and this is what I'm putting forward to you.
Yeah. These are your regulations. These are your acts and statutes. This says that under a non-commercial agreement, this negotiable instrument is acceptable. I've transferred the negotiable instrument to yourselves. You say you don't accept it, yet you've kept it. You've not sent it me back. You will not engage with me as to how we can remedy this, because it's obvious that you've sent me the remedy, but you won't help me with it. So let's go to a court. The courts won't deal with it, because they go for the warrant of entry to hold you ransom, because even though there is a lad at the moment who's in contact with me, they'd cut him off completely at the road because they claim that he was extracting, right? Now, there's a lot of mitigating circumstances over this with his meter. He hasn't done, he's not done it how I did it, where I put the account into dispute first, then I challenged the warrants and all this kind of stuff. A lot of people are ignoring everything until they're at the door. And then they're getting in touch with me saying, how do we do this? Well, hang on a minute, you've fucked up the first third of it. Yeah. So now we've got to back engineer it and take it from what you've done. What have you done wrong, and where can we start with this? You know, this lad's got to try and get... There's no meter fitted at the minute, he's been capped off. Well, it's against his human rights to be capped off. So what they've done is, they must be deeming that as an empty premises, because he's ignored everything. He's not interacted with them. So it's like if you completely ignore a utility company, and then they're going for a warrant, what remedy are you going to offer? Every bill that they've sent you, you've sent back no contract. So you haven't got a negotiable instrument, you've not put the accounts into dispute, you've just ignored it. So as far as they're concerned, nobody lives at that house. So they'll get a forced entry warrant like that. Yeah. Because if it's an empty property, they must go in and cap that gas. They must cap it for a safety issue. So people think that they're doing good in challenging these people, but it's how they're challenging them. If you challenge them by ignoring them, then how can you then use a remedy that you've ignored?
Yeah. I think, Paul, what you're saying is, in the past 5 or 6 years, because of the good work of the people just like yourself, that this is all the stuff that we're learning. And, there's a couple of comments in the chat room, which I want to get to. I promise we are going to get to the jurisdiction answer in a minute. All this other stuff keeps popping up in the chat room, though. Free man on the land does not work, fight them back with their rules. That's from Kevin, and that's basically what you've been saying for the past hour, basically, Paul. Let's just have a look. Police get to assume you are driving when they see there is a registered plate on the car. You appear to be using a DVI vehicle. That's from Nick Nomick a few seconds ago. Thanks for that one, Nick. There we go. It's ironic freemen of the land can say that a Roman civil system based on voluntary servitude for a state entity. That's from Spot. Hang on a minute. I think I'm getting this in a few bits, actually. Using someone else's paper stuff, all built on a feudal system. You got to laugh. That's from Spot. Thank you very much. If you are hanging around in the lobby instead of being in the actual chat room, if you just press the green tab and click on the AM host chat room, then you can join us in the chat room if you're listening and you want to get involved tonight. Paul, we've spent long enough telling everybody we're going to get to this jurisdiction question. Give us the answer, mate, because everybody's sat there on the edge of the sofa.
Well, I think I've already given you the answer. The fact is that I had armed response police stood round me. That's how important the jurisdictional question is, because nobody can. When we look at civil, when anything that's civil, there can be only penalties of civil law. There can't be penalties in common law. So if I've engaged in commerce with you and I've caused you loss, then let's go to a county court of equity. You bring your case forward, show me what loss I've caused you. If I can't rebut that, then I will compensate you for the loss I've caused.
Yeah, bring forward the injured party, and I'll make amends.
That's the simplicity of it. That is the simplicity of it. But these people go into civil matters with no case whatsoever. I can give you loads of examples. An example of mine personally, where Cabot Finance, over an overdraft, decided to go through Northampton bullshit warehouse. I asked them to bring it to my county court and I'll defend the claim. So there's a 2-hour hearing set up. The barrister stands up and gives 2 pieces of evidence. One is a bank account with my name on it and my signature. And I held my hand up and I said, yeah, that's my application, that's my bank account, I applied for that bank account. And his other piece of evidence was a statement of what they believed to be true. Right. Where's the evidence of the debt? Can you show me the evidence of the debt? Because you can believe I owe you money, as long as you like. But where is the evidence of the debt? Yes, I did get that bank account, but where's the evidence of the debt? So, again, 2-hour hearing, he's given his evidence within 5 minutes. Mr. Webster, have you anything to say? Yeah, I'd like to bring up, here's the Bank of England quarterly printout to show as to where money is created from, where the overdraft that has been used is actually created from my credit. This is the European Parliamentary Directives talking about the insurance policies that these companies must take out. She stopped me and said, if you're going to talk about insurance policies and not speak plain English, I'm not going to speak to you anymore. So a 2-hour hearing was done in less than 7 minutes. So I started to put all my stuff together, I'm putting my bundle together, packing up, and I get up and she says, Mr. Webster, if you leave now, you won't be able to contest the costs. I said, I'm not going to contest costs. I said, I'll just put a claim in against you for fraud. I said, you tell me this is impartiality. You have just he has brought nothing forward, yet you are now taking his side and finding against me. He has brought nothing forward, nothing whatsoever. to prove that there is a claim. So you're telling me you're going to find on his behalf. There's no point me being here any further. Well, Mr. Webster, there's no Mr. Webster about it. There's no point me being here. You're going to do what you're going to do. So when I started to play about in their world, if you like, I have no fear of using that name, because that name can only be used if they can prove that I've actually engaged in some form of commerce and I've got some agreement with them that they've lent me something and I've agreed to pay it. All these different kinds of factors, because at the end of the day, can I show an unfair agreement with my mortgage? Did I go into a bank expecting a bank to say, yes, we can lend you that money, here you go, and they've lent me that money? That's what I expected, but that's not what's happening.
Paul, I had my bee in my bonnet, as I often do, back end of last year, and there was one of the big banks had got an advert on the telly which basically said, and I'm paraphrasing here, come to us and we will lend you money for a house. Yeah. So I wrote an email to the Advertising Standards Commission and basically said, that's incorrect, they're not lending anything, they are merely facilitating credit. So I'm complaining about the advert.
Yeah. And
the answer I got back was, yeah, but, you know, it's within the spirit of it. Now, it's either a dog or it's a cat.
Yeah, but it's in the spirit of a dog or a cat.
Yeah, well, it's got 4 legs and it's fluffy, but one barks and the other one purrs. But that is genuinely the answer that I got back, and I wish I'd kept it. But anyway, quick question, and it is in relation to what you're talking about right now, Paul, in the chat room from Spot. Question, is forfeiture the same animal as surrendering?
Ooh. It'd be interesting to look at the definition between the two, but I would say surrendering.
Oh, sorry, I'm missing the bottom bit off here. Sorry, the chat room moves that quick. Is forfeiture the same animal as surrendering when considering common law? Court can always offer forgiveness or mercy.
If you're surrendering something, I would think that you've already resigned to the fact that
you've already rolled over and died, basically.
Yeah. So I would say that would be, just thinking of it off the top of my head, that would be the difference for me.
Yeah.
A forfeiture is where beforehand you're actually making that decision. If I can't give you this, I will give you this.
Yeah.
Now that's all fine and dandy if it is a fair agreement. You know, if you're going to lend me some money, Ade, and to make sure that if I can't pay you that money back, I'm going to say, put my car on the line. So you're going to lend me £1,000, and I'll say, well, look, there's my car. You can sell my car, and if you get £1,000 for it, you're paid off. If you get 1,200 for it, I get 200 quid. You get your £1,000, I get 200 quid. That's fair enough. That's a fair agreement.
Yeah.
But when we get to the mortgages, one thing I found interesting is if you look in Section 19 and 20 of the Consumer Credit Act 2006, those two sections are based on unfair agreements. Now, can you show an unfair agreement for your mortgage? Because under those two sections, a county court has the authority to reopen any case if it can be shown there was an unfair agreement. How many mortgages are unfair agreements?
Well, every single one, because the bank or the so-called lender brought nothing to the table, zero.
Exactly. So when we walk in there, because the executive and the judiciary work hand in hand, it's two wolves and a sheep deciding what's for dinner.
Yeah.
There's two parties going in there, one's already lost, and it's the one who hasn't got a solicitor. If you've got a solicitor and they've already decided you're losing, your solicitor will work the best they can to help foot you over.
I mean, we've got a couple of comments in the chat room, and I think what they're getting at is what you probably, Paul, would call the free man way of doing it, the way of diverting round it. which is contrary to what you're actually saying, because what you're saying is don't be afraid of your person, your straw man, use him and use their system against them. Because here's a quick comment, this one from Patrick. Did hear someone was in court and they said, are you trying to access the, hang on a minute, I can't read this, the writing's too small, Sechu KV Trust, and they panicked. I can't verify this though. I mean, I've heard of people walking into court and when they said, are you, and read out a name, just say, is that the trust that you're trying to administrate here today? Things as simple as that. Yeah. And they panic and walk out. And I have heard that before. But what you're saying is don't do that. Take on your person, stand there as a person rather than a man, and use their own system against them.
Well, no, I wouldn't say don't do that, because I applaud other people to do other things. But what I'm saying is, in my experience, if I'd have done that, I would have got fucked over a lot quicker than what I actually did. Because it at this moment in time, it gives them too much of a foot in. So what I did decide to do was, I know for a fact, in every single act and statute that they put down in front of me, my remedy's in that act. I've just got to find it. They always put the remedy within the act that they're prosecuting you under. You've got to find that remedy.
Yeah.
The reason why I said I will use the name is because I'd gone in with the Freeman stuff and it wasn't working. It should have worked. The fact is, I didn't sign anything on the first day, and I said I don't agree for you to adjudicate. We all know that circuit and county courts require they require both parties to agree before the cause or during the cause for the court to have jurisdiction, unless I take a solicitor and the other party takes a solicitor, because two solicitors in front of a judge in a county court gives jurisdiction.
Right.
So that's all he needs to see. If he sees two solicitors, game on. Game on. I've got jurisdiction. Two solicitors, I've got jurisdiction. The two solicitors now are going to be played off against each other. And the more argument that's created, this is why they love couples who are divorcing, who race each other. Because one couple will raise an argument, and then the other couple will raise a bigger argument, and then the arguments keep getting raised and raised and raised. And while there's argument, there is money being made.
Yep.
So the more argument, the more money. So I try and use less argument and let's go straight for the facts. The fact is, they're looking for Mr. Paul Webster. Well, Mr. Paul Webster, particularly with British Gas, hello, I'm here. Yeah, here's my cheque. I've been sent this cheque to remedy this. I'm here to administer remedy today. And they're not interested because they're going for warrants. So you can't talk about the remedy. You talk about the warrants. You talk about what. See, you've got, if they're going for a warrant of entry, they're going for it under Section 2 of the 54 Rights of Entry Act. Now, there's that body of words, right of entry.
Yep.
You've got to find that body of words in the legislation they are claiming to break into your house under. Now, if you go into the Gas Act, 1986, and you find where the words rights of entry are, they pertain to the sections that talk about pipes, fittings, escape of gas. You do not find the body of words rights of entry to do with prepayment meters or monetary disputes, because they don't have a right of entry.
Not unless you give explicit permission.
Unless you've signed a prepayment meter agreement. And they've got to have that agreement signed in order for them to take the alleged debt off you through a meter. They've got to have a signed agreement. None of them are having this. Yeah. Nobody's got these signed agreements. The police haven't got a clue what they're doing. So you're basically fighting. You're basically fighting from the get-go.
Yeah. I mean, I helped a friend of mine with Sky TV the other day. And she was there panicking. And I said, listen, Kerry, take your emotions out of this. You've got to look at it objectively. They're saying you've got a 12-month contract. Your husband's come out of work. You can't pay it. Take your emotions out, ring them up and tell them. And when they tell you you've got a contract, tell them, no, you haven't. You've got an agreement, but your circumstances have changed. So you're calling them out of goodwill to renegotiate this agreement.
Ooh.
And she got a result. She got a great result.
She did.
Yeah.
Of course she did. They're not... I'll tell you, I had this with British Gas. I was telling you about the payment plans they messed up. They rang me up and they said, you owe us so much. I said, yeah, I believe so. And the fella says to me, we want £122 a month. I said, no, I'll pay you 60. He went, oh no, we can't be that little. He says, just hang on a sec. And I hear him tapping away. £108 a month. No, I'm not paying you that. I'll pay you £60 a month. Just hang on 1 second. I can do it at £92 a month, Mr. Webster. I went, I'll pay you £60 a month. He said, oh, I can't. Just hang on a sec. I'll have to go and speak to my line manager. Goes away, comes back. Good news, Mr. Webster. Got it reduced to £82 a month. I said, I'll pay you 60. He went, okay. He said, okay. And he took £60 a month. And it was because they want this amount. No, you're getting this. This is what you're getting. I had it with my cousin's girlfriend last year. For whatever reason, unbeknownst to me, she didn't get a TV licence. There's a knock at the door. There's a fellow there saying he's from TV licensing. Again, unbeknownst to me, she lets him in.
Oh, God.
Comes into the living room, and what is she doing? She's watching Jeremy Kyle. So, she's not getting away. She's not getting away with not watching television. So, I said, right, tell me what's happened. Well, he's took my name and my details, and I've signed for him. I went, right. And then they've gone to court, and the court order is I need to pay £190 including costs.
Get it paid. Right.
I said, right, okay, so that's what you've got. She said, yeah. But I've just had Marston's at the door saying that the removal van's an hour away and that they want 500 quid. They're going to start with the car on the front. I went, right, if he comes back, tell him to fuck off. I said, what do you mean tell him to fuck off? I said, tell him to fuck off. He said they could get a warrant to arrest me. I went, they're not going to get a warrant to arrest you. I said, what they'll have to do to get a warrant to arrest you, they're going to have to go back to court to state that you're refusing to pay on a court order of 190 quid. And I said, you just told me you put all your disability living allowance stuff in to the department for payment, yeah? Mm-hmm. He says, yeah, that's what we've done. I said, right. I said, so you offer what you can afford. Well, they want £85 a week, and I only get £115 a week. I said, what can you afford? She said, 20 a month. I said, offer 20 a month. Stick to that. And boom, that was it. So
had she have not been watching telly and written to him and said, I don't need a TV licence, and by the way, you're not coming to check, she wouldn't have had any of that hassle.
No, it wouldn't. But she, honestly, mate, these people are like, I'm going back. I have to go back 20 years to be on the same level as these people, and I don't mean that derogatory. I mean that because I always knew there was something wrong, but I always kept my head below the radar. But when this stuff all kicked off for me, people were asking me questions, and they always said, let me know how you get on, let me know how you get on. Which is, it's fine, but go and learn.
Exactly that. Go and learn for yourself. Yeah.
If you're not going to challenge anything, that's one thing. But go and learn. Go and fucking learn about your rights, because if you don't learn about your rights, nobody's going to tell them to you. No. And then it's like a Kev who's in the chat room there. Kevin's done work. He's done a lot of work for people, trying to get it done for them. But they've never learnt it. Yeah. And when it's come down to them, they've let themselves down and fucked everything up because they don't understand it. And you said it before as well, Ed. You can't spoon feed people.
It's got to come from your heart. You've got to know it. No, you've got to feel it from the inside that it's wrong, and you know that so much that you're compelled to go and find out.
You have to. You have to, because it's like I'm dealing with a parking ticket at the minute. I've never dealt with parking tickets before. So the interesting thing is for me, it's a council parking ticket. It's took them 8 weeks to get back to me, and all I asked them was, can you tell me what statutory provision your agent was acting under when he put this ticket on my car? Because it's double yellow lines, which is highway code, but what statutory provision are you acting under? You know, because double yellow lines, there's a lot of things for double yellow lines. You know, are you telling me there's a royal visit, so there's extra provisions in place? Because other than that, I can't find what statutory provision you're acting under. And it's all about asking silly, childish questions. It's about going back to that childishness, asking stupid childhood questions. Yeah. Why? What's that for? Why? They fucking hate it.
Of course they do. Paul, we've got about 20 minutes or thereabouts. Now, I know I'm bursting to know, and there must be other people as well. Earlier on, we talked about county court and your half of your house and becoming the claimant, case law. These are things we've touched on, and something else I want you to cover as well is the successes that you've had. So we've got about 18 minutes, mate. All I've got to say is, in your own time, crack on.
Well, see, now we get down to the nitty-gritty here now, Ed, because people class victories in so many different ways. I haven't paid for my gas for 5 years. They've left me alone for 2 years. That's not because I've got away with anything. That's because I've said I'm willing to pay you. I want to settle this. You've sent me the remedy. I'm willing to settle it. Let's work through this. And they don't want to know. They just walked away. The house stuff, I can tell you, hand on heart, I won every case. But did I lose my property? Yes, I did. Yes, I did lose my property. But that didn't mean that I wasn't right. And it's the same with a lot of other people. Tom Crawford's been vilified. You know, some people think rightly so, others don't. I'm very impartial when it comes to Tom because, you know, he's worked through some hard stuff, Tom has. It's not as clear cut as what people want to think. People think, right, well, you've had your victories here, you've had your victories there, and you've had your losses here, you've had your losses. It's not that. I've had victories when I've had losses. I've also had losses when I've had victories. I know so many people in the same boat because we're not allowed to have. We can have one win. I can have, hand on my heart, I can say I've had a district judge say I've not got the jurisdiction to award that to the other party, and it's been awarded to me. But then 2 months later, another hearing's brought up. A judge is put into place who will find against me, who will not be impartial, and who looks to dig you personally dig you out of your situation. So it's not as easy as to say these are my victories, these are my losses, because everything I've been through, Aid, I class as a victory, because number one, I'm still fucking sat here talking to you.
Yep.
I'm not dead. They've not killed me, and I haven't killed myself. And I tell you, I haven't got a clue how some people go through worse than me, and still stand. Others don't go through anything like what I've been through and still give up and take themselves out of this world. What bugs me was my mum and dad worked like dogs. My mum worked 13 hours a day in her own shop. My dad did 6 nights long distance lorry driving per week. In the days where you did 6 nights on, you had 1 night off. You didn't get 6 off. You did 6 nights on, 1 night off. You did 6 nights back on. These were like dogs, and they paid bills. I remember, oh, listen, do you want to go out for a pint this week, Tom? I've got the gas bill in. It's not the red one, though. We can wait for the red one.
Yep.
And I'm going, and they didn't have to pay for that. I'm going up to my nan's on a Sunday, who used to cook meat pies, meat and potato pies, macaroons, all these baking. She used to do all this baking to get all the family to come up. And you go up there, and the heating's off, and she's got 3 duvets wrapped round her, sat in an armchair. Now, why have you not got your heating on? Oh, I can't afford that. Oh, it's gone up. Oh, it's dear. It's this, that, and the other. That's not what this place is about. We need to know what this economy was. This economy went bankrupt 300 years ago, and all the debts were put onto our ancestors. For that, we have shares. Why do we not claim them shares? Because people don't know. And it's not about somebody going and getting a victory, because I've not paid for my gas for 5 years. Is that a victory? Well, I think that's a victory. But
nobody gave you a gold star and a certificate, but I'd call that a victory.
Exactly, but can I show you in black and white? Can I show you my gold star? Can I show you it's signed off by the Secretary of State or HM Treasury? No, I can't do that. But these people want it spoon-fed to them. Show me what you did. 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Oh, that's how you did it. Now I can do it. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. If you want to make a victory out of this, you've got to go in. You've got to get your hands dirty, and then differentiate where you got beat, where you won, and where they eventually did you.
Yeah. Because
it's always about what they eventually do you on. Because you can rebut everything all the way through, and they get you on something and nothing. And I mean something and nothing. And those judges are very happy to sit there and go, whew, I'm glad they put that little bit in there. They had me up until that little bit.
Yeah.
That's the point to this, Ed.
Or then they'll flip jurisdiction, become a magistrate, make a shit decision, and then walk away with his hands clean.
Boom. And that's what we do.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we do.
Yeah.
It's what we do all the time. It's all about...
I think you're dead right. You know, the only way to actually do it is to try and learn from people like yourself, but do it in your own way, because when you're stood there and you're the one in that little box, you know, it's you they're questioning. It's not Paul Webster. Paul Webster's not there. Kevin's not there. Ade's not there. Andy Young's not there. Jason Holmes isn't there. You know, Freeman Jack's not stood next to you. It's you, and you've got to know it inside out, and you've got to know what your point of view is, and you've got to do it for yourself. And it's an uncomfortable place to be. I know. But you've got to do it for yourself. And, you know, for anybody who's listening, just get educated. Educate yourself.
You've got to look at something new. If you believe that everything that in this world is true, everything that we've been taught is all true, if you actually pick up that doctrination and you say everything that I've been taught is true, everything about the financial system is correct and above board, then you are going to fall into this system. You're going to drag everybody that is remotely related to you, closely enough anyway, you're going to drag all them into this system. And all I can think of is, why would you want to do that? Why do you want to sell these people out? Why do you not want to learn? Why do you call me a thief for not paying for my gas when I can show you I'm not liable? Because I could say to people, Ade, you're not liable to pay for my rent. Pay me fucking rent, you bastard. That'll save me £425 a month. Why don't you pay my rent? Oh, you're going to tell me you're not liable to pay my rent. Well, I'm not liable to pay my council tax because I don't live in a rateable property. I'm not liable to pay for a driving licence because I don't operate in commerce. I'm not liable to pay for road tax because I don't use a motor vehicle to operate in commerce. I'm not liable to have to go and buy vehicle insurance because I pay national insurance.
Yep.
Where do we stop? It's about people not keep saying to me, show me a victory. Show me where you won, Webby. It's got fuck all to do with me. This is what I did. These are my results. Can I show you that I'm a victor? Have I put my fucking kilt on, painted my face and shouted freedom. No, I'm telling you that this is what I did because of the circumstances I was pushed into.
Yeah.
These are my results from those circumstances.
Yeah.
And when you bring those results out, am I happy with what I did? Well, maybe not, because I didn't get that declared victory that people want to see. But yes, I fucking bloodied the noses, and I can hold my head up. I can hold my head up high when I walk out my door in the morning.
Exactly
right.
right.
It doesn't matter what they stole from me, Ade. It doesn't matter what they've done to me. I can walk out with my head held high. They could fucking lift me tomorrow for some trumped up charge, whatever they want to make up. But I've still done what I've done from the centre of my fucking heart. And that's where it started out of, I'm being hard done by here, but it didn't progress to that. It progressed to, there's so many people being hard done by. So many people, and people need to wake up, get that into their heads that they are being hard done by, and find out what they can do. Don't follow me. Don't get in touch with me and say, I followed your videos. You've not followed any fucking method or format that I've come up with. You've followed nothing what I've come up with. You've done something similar to what I've done. And I've done it because somebody gave it to me that was working.
Yeah.
When I went and did it, these are my results. What happened when you went and did it? Don't wait for me. Don't wait for me. You go and do it and tell me what happened to you.
Paul, we've got some comments in the chat room that I want to read out, but then I want to pinpoint one word that you've said a couple of times that we've not delved into, but we're only going to have a few minutes to do that. I hope we can do it justice. Let's do these things in the chat room first. 2 lawyers in a town, they both get rich. 1 lawyer in a town, he starves. Very true. Don't know this one. I think this one's from Patrick. We made a £4,000 debt disappear by simply requiring the original promissory loan note to be returned in exchange for the remaining value. Good one. Somebody's put on here, fair play to you, Paul. You've got balls, mate. That's from Patrick. So what else we got? I'm just trying to whisk through these as quick as I can because I want to get to one final bit. Here we go. Oh, here we go. Mithrin. People don't want conflict. If they can pay, they will pay. It's not until you can't pay that you learn this stuff. That's a cracking comment, that, Mithrin. I've heard a few people say, until you get kicked off your perch, you don't learn how to get up.
That's true. That's true.
Paul, one word I want to jump on because we've got about 5 minutes. Claimant. You said you have to become the claimant.
Yeah.
Okay, take it away, mate.
Everything that we are put into, we are defending. And while we are defending, we cannot go on the attack. It's not seen.
So when a judge says, I don't see you, or I can't see that, that's exactly what he means. I can't see that.
Well, it's not just that. It's because normally, when he's talking to one of us like that, we haven't brought a solicitor. So what he's actually saying is, I don't see anybody of legal standing on your side. Now, this is just his way of trying to obfuscate things. They're just trying to mix things up here. The fact is, you're there. He can clearly see you. He can hear what argument you're bringing forward. But because you have no legal standing, they've got the ability to ignore or take in what bits are beneficial to them and then use the bits that are not beneficial to fuck you off. So it's a different kind of perspective if you want to look at it from that. But the only times we've gone down to, quite a few of us who've gone down to the Royal Courts at London, and we've gone before the Masters, went before Master McLeod, and on a few occasions they'd said, yeah, your paperwork's spot on. So, well, why are we not winning? Why are we getting fucked over in these courts? And she said the one sentence, become the claimant.
Wow.
Because as defendant, you're going to get fucked over. Whereas as a claimant, you might be able to direct the judge a lot better.
Right. That's an absolute essential piece of information. Just learning that, if all anybody ever gets from tonight's 2-hour show is become the claimant, I think that we ought to have called the show "Become the Claimant." That's what we should have.
People don't do. It's what people don't do. We had a lad. Me and Kevin had a lad who got. He tried to stop a warrant at the door, and the policeman who turned up arrested him, took his keys off him, gave them to the gas man who let himself in, changed the meters, let himself back out, locked the door, handed the keys back to the policeman, who then de-arrested the lad and handed his keys back. Now, the copper has just arrested him and allowed somebody to break and enter into his property. Now, the only way that there can be a remedy extracted from that is if somebody took the policeman to court as a man, acting as a constable, but beyond his powers as constable. Yes. That was the only way for remedy there.
Yeah.
And if nobody does that, Ade, then it comes back to square one. And that's what we're having a lot of things happening with.
Misconduct in a public office is a very serious offence, Constable.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
7 years custodial he's facing.
Yeah. Yeah. Paul, a couple of things I just want to touch on because we're very close to the end. If anybody wants to start or feels they now have no choice other than to start down this journey, where would you suggest they go first? Internet, where would you suggest they're going to actually get some good information? Because, I don't win or lose, I either win or learn.
Yeah.
And if we can learn from each other, then we'll all get through this quicker. Where would you point somebody where they can learn?
Well, if they want to learn about how the economies works and how billing works, jump into the Bills of Exchange Act 1882. The Bills of Exchange Act 1882 in conjunction with the Consumer Credit Acts, because there's the 1974, there's the 2006. Anything that, another thing is, any acts that people say, oh, that's been repealed, go and read about that act, because despite a certain act being repealed, when it gets rewritten, it is put into a different format, but it's still the same legislation. We don't repeal anything, we don't lose anything, it's just changed. We can say that the act was repealed over the guy who won his court case for doing a runner from a taxi in London. And he did a runner based on, he got off with it based on the fact that they didn't have a bale of hay in the boot, because that was still part of the act. Right? Yeah. So you still needed a bale of hay to feed the horse, despite it being a fucking motor vehicle. That's still in the act. So that gets repealed, but it gets put into different sections over, elsewhere. So I would say anybody who wants to look at this stuff, go and understand what the difference is between a domestic agreement and a non-domestic agreement, or if how they word it is a commercial agreement or non-commercial, because this now spreads into council tax. If you look at Section 3 of the Local Government Finance Act 1992, Section 3 talks about dwellings. Now, Section 3 dwellings is all properties. All property are dwellings. So that's commercial and non-commercial property are classed as dwellings. Now, in that section, it states it is not shown, nor required to be shown, on any local or national database that there are any properties exempt from non-domestic ratings. So that's saying there are some properties potentially exempt from non-domestic ratings, but we don't have to tell you who they are.
In other words, it's up to you to find out for yourself.
Ignorance of the law.
Paul, you were an amazing guest, mate, and there's a mountain of information that you've come up with tonight. Personally, I could talk to you and listen to you for hours.
Yeah, I've got so much more.
Oh, I know, mate. Listen, you're welcome back on Raconteurs Too anytime. And I've got Andy Young nodding at me down the Skype chat. And obviously, you're welcome on Raconteurs News anytime you want, mate. Me personally, I'd love to see you as a host here on Raconteurs anytime. And I know Andy would too.
Andy's working on it.
I know you've got your boots full, and there's always lots to do. But listen, I need to wrap up, mate. But you are an amazing guest, and I'm sure everybody, if they were all stood in one room, would give you a massive round of applause. You've definitely got balls, mate, and I absolutely take me hat off to you.
I appreciate that, Ed. Thank you very much, sir.
No problem. Listen, I want to tell everybody what's going on, but just before I do, good luck with DJ the dog. I know he's a poorly boy at the minute. We can all hear him panting on your knee.
He's bad.
Really wish him all your best, because at the end of the day, he's your best mate.
He is, my boy.
Okay, let's look at what we've got coming up next. We've got Happy Hour Extra with Not Dr. Tamara and Tina. Tomorrow night, 5 till 7, we've got Chuck O'Celli. 8 till 10, we've got Andy Young and Jason Holmes on Raconteurs News with a mortgage special. So that's one not to miss. And then 10 to 11 tomorrow night, Happy Hour with Not Dr. Tamara and Tina. You can catch our podcasts on autonomousmedia.net and, of course, on raconteursnews.com. If you want to get in touch, you've got something to say, contact me at aid@raconteursnews. Thanks.